Hello and welcome to another episode of Journey with Us. I'm Jason Abraham. Wish you all, my viewers and listeners, a happy 2023. May God bless you abundantly and make you fruitful this year. Today I want to share with you Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 and if possible 2. Holy Scriptures, the Bible, begins with these words. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This statement could only be written or stated by a God who is before all things. The Bible talks of this God as the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. He's a God who is above time. He's a God who exists. He's a God who is the ground and being of all things that exist. He is in the beginning God. In Hebrew it is Bereshit Elohim. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. We cannot begin anywhere else because it is only God who can tell us how this world came about. How did we come about? How did this beautiful universe come about? Science may be able to tell you the why of things that exist, but it cannot answer the question of how did the world come about or how did I come about. They may propose theories like theory of evolution or foreign Martians coming and planting life on earth or the very question how does anything come into being is something which science, it's not a question that science, it's not in the realm of science to answer. But we have God who is above all time and who He is, who alone is competent enough to talk about the beginnings. I want to talk a little bit about this God. First, it tells me that this God created all things out of nothing just by the sheer force of His words. He spoke and it came about. We will see that. Like the Hebrew writer in the New Testament says, by faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. Out of nothing, ex nihilo, God speaks, and His speech results in form. He commands and it happens. Second thing, it tells me that if He is indeed the creator, He is also the ground of all things. What I mean by that is all things hold together in Him. He holds it together. And if God doesn't hold things together, nothing can exist. Even as Paul talks about that in Colossians chapter 1, verses 16 to 17. He talks about all things were created through Him and for Him. And He is before all things, and in Him all things hold together. If God doesn't hold things together, everything will come crashing down. So the first thing is that God, He is not just the creator who created everything out of nothing, but He is also the God who holds all things together. And I want to bring about a third observation about this God that the Bible speaks about. In fact, the central idea of God is that God is transcendent. God is separate from and independent of His creation. He is not us. He is incomparable. He is the ultimate stranger. We see this illustrated in one of the events we see in Mark's Gospel, chapter 4 and verse 41, where Jesus and the disciples are crossing the Sea of Galilee, and there's a storm, and Jesus is asleep, and then his disciples wake him up, and then Jesus wakes up to this raging storm, and which is threatening to drown them out. That's at least what the disciples thought. He stands and he rebukes the wind and the waves, and they obey and they become still. And the question that perplexed his disciples who were with him was, they were filled with great fear and said to one another, "Who then is this that even the wind and the sea obey him?" He is the ultimate stranger at that point, even when he is with them. So 3 things. He is not only the creator God, who created and just left everything to itself, but he is also the God who holds all things together. But even as we look at this God, we need to understand one thing, that he is a God who is above all things. He is not like us. He is incomparable. He is the ultimate stranger. But at the same time, the good news of the Bible is he is also a God who is transcendent, or the God who is a cut above. There is no comparison to him. But he is also a God with us, and that is Emmanuel. So this God who is nothing like us is also the God who comes down and makes his dwelling with us in the person of Jesus Christ, whom we call as Emmanuel, God with us. So 3 things. In the beginning, God. This God who is the creator God, who not only created all things by the sheer force of his words, but he holds all things together. He is a God who is incomparable. There is no words that can express this God. He is different. He is transcendent. But at the same time, he is a God who is with us, Emmanuel. He is a God who in his sovereign goodwill and good pleasure has chosen to involve himself in the affairs of humans. We see his presence and activity within human nature and history. He is not a God who created things and just let it be, but he is a God who is involved with his creation, a God who is active in his creation, a God who keeps and holds and sustains his creation. He is a God who is interested in his creation. I want you to, before I close, I want you to take you to verse 2. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. It appears that, as Trot Briscoe puts it, apparently the creation seemed to have progressed from a state of nothingness through a state of formlessness and emptiness to a condition where formlessness gave way to form and emptiness surrendered to fullness. We see here is a God who out of nothing creates all things. In verse 2 we see a sense of formlessness and emptiness. But if we go further down, in the verses of the first chapter of Genesis, you will see that this formlessness gives way to form, beauty. And the emptiness is filled with wonderful things. Things, animals and birds and fishes and all of those wonderful things. And then finally the creation of humans to take care of this wonderful universe, the wonderful world that God had created. Yes, he is a creator God. He is a God who holds all things together. He is a God who is different, who is nothing that words can describe. But at the same time, he is God with us, who is actively involved in our lives. He is a God who out of nothing creates all things. Out of formlessness, he brings out form and beauty. And in the emptiness, He fills it with beautiful things. What does that tell you and me? It tells that we can have hope this new year, even as we face with the chaos and uncertainty that is out there, with the world that we live in. We do not know what's going to happen. It's chaotic. We cannot predict the future. It looks all so chaotic and it's so unpredictable that it causes anxiety. But I want to tell you something. Out of this chaos, our lives can be claimed. And out of this formlessness, not knowing where it is, He can give a form. In the emptiness of our life, He can fill it with His love and make something beautiful. He can claim us for His grand purposes. That is what these two verses tells me. It tells me about a God who not only created all things, who not only holds all things, who is so different but who is with us, who is involved in our lives, who cares about you and me, who is able to give form to things that are formlessness and to fill the emptiness that exists in our life and in our world. Thank you for listening. It has been good once again meeting with you through this medium. If you like it, please share it, subscribe, and tell about this ministry to your friends. Thank you once again, and God bless you.